the sessions prior to this, we call upon your blessing. We ask for your wisdom, and we ask for something to ignite and be triggered in our hearts like fire that would touch other people who have a kindred spirit and heart for nationhood, for true self-reliance, and for lasting national development and a great legacy. So we ask for your blessing upon this session. May everything go well to the glory and to the praise of your holy name. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, Pastor Francis Forbes, for that prayer. We pray that God answer all our prayers. Once again, welcome back from that lunch break, and I hope you all enjoyed the lunch. I know the Ture Kundakas, the Kamara Kundas and Bayans are happy. So welcome back. I mean, we are now back for the part 2 of the panel discussion as part of, the national dialogue organized in celebration of the country's 60th independent anniversary on 18 February, 1965, since, like I said earlier on, the Union Jack was lowered for the last time and the Gambian flag hoisted, marking the country's self-rule. And on a day like today, we really have to pay homage to those that led the struggle, the likes of Sadara Kairaba Jawara, who, as we all know, this iconic international conference center is named after him, and many others who were part of the struggle to ensure, the Gambia, gained independence from British rule on 18 February 1965. At this moment, I will invite our panelists for part 2 of this panel discussion. I will invite Pastor Francis Forbes, like I said, who is a renowned Gambian minister, educator, and motivational figure. Pastor, welcome to the high table. From Pastor Forbes, I will now invite Aissatou Jammeh, who is a human rights advocate and social worker with over 5 years of experience supporting victims in the Gambia. Aissatou Jammeh. Aissatou Jammeh is okay. Aissatou is also joining the panel is Anna Njai, who is a seasoned legal expert with over 16 years of experience in civil and commercial litigation. Anna, welcome. And I have Professor Jibril Fall, renowned multidisciplinary business and development executive, who is also the co-founder of GK Partners, the implementing agency of the Migration and Sustainable Development Project in the Gambia. I now invite Mrs. Ndai Siren J. Bakwin, who is a seasoned environmental manager and sustainable development expert with over 29 years of experience. Now you're welcome to the high table. And those at the back, if you can please, occupy the front seats, it will be better. You can just come forward and occupy the front seats, please, if you don't mind. Thank you for your understanding. Finally, I invite Mr. Demba Kande, Gambian journalist, academic, and media freedom advocate. Mr. Demba Kande. So those at the back, you can kindly, come forward and occupy, the front seats. So our first speaker for this panel discussion will be Pastor Francis Forbes. Like I said, he is a renowned Gambian minister, educator, and motivational figure. From winning a piano prize at 14 to earning a biochemistry degree, he founded the Abiding World Ministers in 1998, dedicating over 3 decades to empowering individuals through preaching, teaching, and mentorship. His weekly GRTS telecast, Discovering Truth, has made him a household name, earning him the title the nation's pastor. In 2019, he established the Forbes Academy, offering training in leadership, public speaking, and team building. Recognized with the Member of the Order of the Republic of the Gambia in 2008, Pastor Forbes continued to inspire through his ministry, international engagement, and transformative initiatives. Pastor Forbes, welcome, and share your perspectives, in relation to the theme of the independence celebration, which is marching in solidarity for self-reliance and national development.
Thank you very much, and good afternoon or good evening to you all. And I express my thanks to the organizers.
Just a quick one. As part of the rules, we expect all of you to make your statement within 10 minutes at least, so that we stay within time, because as you know, so at least all of you within 10 minutes you should be able to summarize whatever you are supposed to share with us. I know you have a lot to talk about, but due to time factor. Thank you.
Okay. So this time is not added.
No, it's not.
Okay, so we start. As I was saying, greetings to you all, and thanks to the organizers, and thanks especially to my classmate, Ami Bojang. We're classmates in Gambia High School in 1976. So we're rolling almost 50 years. I didn't say anything. I said we're classmates in 19. Amen. I've taken note of the many topics chosen to discuss this Diamond Jubilee Independence Anniversary Celebrations theme, which is marching in solidarity for self-reliance and national development. So the purpose of my own topic is to give you the Christian perspective, a perspective that is well worth paying very keen attention to, so that we understand it and emulate it, and not just think we know what it is. Christianity is a faith and persuasion based upon a personal transformational encounter and relationship with Jesus Christ, Savior, Lord, Redeemer, and Messiah, or in Arabic you say Al-Masihu. It is not necessarily group dynamic, so it's not just an Aku, Catholic, Jola, Manjago, Karonika preserve. It is personal and open to anyone and everyone. So from this encounter and relationship, a passionate, committed, surrendered, what I call a sold out lifestyle emerges, and it grows into maturity, positively affecting our lives in 3 dimensions. The first is our continued upward relationship with God, our Heavenly Father, from where we draw our daily strength, our purpose, and our life meaning. My TV program is 28 years and 8 months old. And people ask me, how do you do it? Because when you sustain something for almost 30 years, you either run out of ideas or you are tired, or, but what is it? It's born out of an encounter, a relationship. It's not being called John or Mary or being born in a house that has nice flowers. It's personal. The second thing is that this encounter affects our interactions with other such believers to strengthen and edify and build us up the same way iron sharpens iron. So it motivates us. And thirdly, this association affects our interaction with everyone else outside of these first 2 spheres, causing us to live lives that witness to and for Jesus Christ in his transformative power in our lives. Because we first are before we do. Our doing comes from our being. This ethos, ladies and gentlemen, is at the very center and core of our lives, presenting the Lord Jesus Christ and his kingdom in a humble yet dignified and exemplary manner as a witness, especially to a watching and scrutinizing audience made up of our fellow citizens and others, even and especially the underaged, and the youth, who see everything happening, everything reported on social media, and they watch to see our sincerity and our genuineness, if it's of any worth to their own life, and whether they should stay here, work here, live here with patriotism, or bid us goodbye, take other citizenships, and come on holiday. In our growing relationship with Jesus Christ, in our surrendered life, we get to understand from the Bible that we are the light of the world. We are the salt of the earth. Salt doesn't have to be in billions of grams to affect soup. Almost all recipes talk about a pinch of salt. So 1, 2, 3, 5 in a community ought to be effective. We are also taught from the Bible to be witnesses of what we have experienced. We also get to learn from many other Bible verses which instruct us on how to live our work life, our school life, our family lives, our business lives, and how we should live and walk out of and from reverence to God, who sees us all the time, everywhere, when everybody else doesn't see us. So we operate and function with integrity, with good conscience, peacefulness, and keeping our word of honor, because we carry his name. That's why it's not just you are born John, you are born Mary, and you go to this church. There has to be a personal transformation that you can say, at this point, something triggered something else in my life. So it is our Christian values, our ethos, and our ethics that mold us into a people whose love for and worship of God directly translates into our love for our country, for her true independence, prosperity, togetherness, and peace, including, of course, self-reliance and national development. This is what makes us live the lives that witness for Jesus everywhere you see us. So, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, self-reliance from the Christian worldview, and also for the true believer, is a lifestyle choice. A lifestyle choice that comes from our source, our true north, seeking to please him and glorify his name in all we do. It is what makes us not change 3 to 8 and 1 to 9 in accounts. Because we know that even though nobody can see us physically, somebody else can see us from eternity into time, back into eternity. So we put our all in our work, and as a non-negotiable extension of our worship of God. We don't have two lives. Our Sunday life, and then Monday we are cricketing, Thursday, Saturday, and then we come back. No, it's one life. We put our all in our work as a non-negotiable extension of our worship. And we learn to excel in all that we do so that we can also exchange fairly and ethically our training, our knowledge, our skills, our acumen, and our equity for decent and respectful remuneration in cash or kind. I think that's fair. We learn to be content. Contentment is not a Karolinka thing. It's not an Aku thing. Contentment is a Christian thing. And that comes from a relationship. We learn to be content. We learn to be dignified. We learn to be patient. Certainly not laid back. We learn to be respectful and respectable in all that we do. We learn not to be inordinate in our expectations, our appetites, and our demands. We learn not to be greedy, jealous, envious, and hateful of anyone progressing properly. Because our reactions and responses, ladies and gentlemen, are a reflection of who we believe in, who we worship, and from whom we get our strength and the grace, favor, and wisdom to work and to relate. And that adds value to our national desire and drive for self-reliance and true lasting national development. and not just infrastructural development, good as that certainly is, but lasting human capacity building, confidence, and patriotism in God. As I close, we learn from the Bible that though we are essentially interdependent with others, our interdependence comes from each Christian individual's connection with Jesus Christ that causes us to openly live out his teachings, his principles, his doctrine in a noticeably adorable and positively enviable way, stirring up others and causing searching questions to be asked, and hopefully leading to a win-win lifestyle outcome for our nation's vision and objectives, which include true self-reliance and real national development. So for the Christian, and for biblical Christianity, self-reliance does not and cannot just come from how well-read we are, how widely exposed, widely traveled, economically endowed we are, but rather all this will always point back to God, to his grace and enablement upon our lives, so that our lives and living always give glory to him. There can be no meaningful, time-tested, and lasting national development and economic prosperity with self-reliance outside of these parameters, principles, and paradigms for the Christian, and indeed for any genuinely God-fearing, country-loving citizen. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a true north, we have a source, we have a point of reference, without whom everything we do has no meaning. Because this true north causes us to see ourselves in others, to love, to embrace, to support, to uplift, and never to hate, never to disdain, never even to mock or taunt people. So I present to us all as a nation the Jesus model and the Christian ethos for self-reliance. And I also call upon everybody who wears this badge of honor as being Christian to live this way. And added to every other thing we have had this morning and what you'll hear after me, if we put them together, I believe we will soon be seen as people making the required and necessary national lifestyle adjustments. And in the sacred words of our national hymn and anthem, we'll be striving, working, and praying so that we all live in unity, proving man's brotherhood, as together we worship and serve this great God of nations. I wish us all a happy 60th Independence Anniversary, Diamond Jubilee celebrations, and may we live together as one people under God and become the true smiling coast of Africa. And thank you all for your kind attention, and may God keep us all in Jesus' name.
Thank you so much, Pastor Forbes, for those insightful remarks. I would like to urge the rest of the panelists to give their presentations and also within the time frame. Next on the panelists, I would like to introduce Ms. Aissatou Jammeh, a human rights advocate and social worker with over 5 years of experience supporting victims in the Gambia. She co-founded the Gambia Center for Victims of Human Rights Violations and hosts the Victims podcast, amplifying victims' voices and promoting the TRRC report. With a background in social work and media, she has gained national and international recognition, including participation in the IVLP on Women Promoting Peace. Recently confirmed as a commissioner for the Victims Reparations Commission, she continues to advocate for justice and victims' rights. Aisha, welcome to the podium.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening, everyone. I stand on existing protocols. it's quite unfortunate we have a half room. I wish we could have had a full room today to really listen to what I really have to say, because transitional justice is something that is very close to my heart. And I think it's one thing that should be everybody's business in Gambia. But unfortunately, I'll just go ahead. In honor to stand before you today, it's an honor to stand before you today on this significant occasion as we march in solidarity for self-reliance and national development. This gathering is a testament to our collective commitment to ensuring justice and accountability and a future where no citizens suffers the injustice of the past. Far too long, survivors of human rights violations, conflict, and oppression have struggled not only for justice, but also for dignified livelihoods and a fulfilled participation in national development. Today, as we reflect on how survivors can be self-reliance in national development, we must acknowledge a fundamental truth of a nation that cannot develop if it does not reckon with the past, provide justice to victims, and ensure that such violations never occur again. Justice is not just about punishing the perpetrators. It is about restoring dignity, repairing harm, and ensuring that survivors of human rights violation can rebuild their lives without fear, stigma in the society. It is important to acknowledge reparation and institutional reforms that guarantee survivors a rightful place in our society. To achieve true self-reliance, survivors must see justice not as a distant promise, but as a lived reality. Those who were unlawfully detained, tortured, lost their loved ones to enforced disappearances, extrajudicial executions, sexual and gender-based violence, should see that justice is served at the end of the day. And justice is not just about a lip service, but to ensure that it happens to the fullest by making sure perpetrators who bear the highest responsibilities of crimes are prosecuted, adequate reparations paid to victims, and ensuring that victims, especially those who have been accused of being witches, live in a society whereby they don't continue to face the stigma that the society is still giving them. Self-reliance means economic independence. Survivors must be provided with access to skills, trainings, entrepreneurship opportunities, and financial resources so that they can thrive on their own. The government and private sectors must work together to create survivors-focused economic programs, ensuring that victims of past human rights violations are not left behind in our nation development. We must also challenge the culture of dependency. Survivors should not have to rely on charities to survive, but they should be empowered. They must be given opportunities to work, own businesses, and contribute to our national economy with dignity and pride. Knowledge is power, and education is key to long-term reliance. Survivors must have access to quality education, vocational training, and leadership development programs that allows them to take active roles in governance, businesses, and civil society. But education is not only about learning the skills, it is also about ensuring that our history is not forgotten. And I think this is one thing that we as a country need to ensure that it's taught in schools, because Gambia had been through 22 years rule dictatorship. And we still have victims that are going through the impact of the violation that was meted on them. And I think it would be fair enough for the young ones that are growing to really know that these violations occurred in this country, and people still have the lasting impact in their lives. And children that are going to school really need to understand that these things happen. Survivors are not just victims of the past. They are witnesses to history and agents of change. Their voices must be centered of governance and policy making. No policy on transitional justice, human rights, and national development should be made without the direct involvement of victims of human rights violations. We must ensure survivors are represented in parliament, in local councils and decision-making bodies where they can shape policies as well. Self-reliance is not just about economic stability again. It is about psychosocial support, medical support for the victims that are still living the impact of the violation that was meted on them. Many survivors continue to struggle with trauma, stigma, emotional burden of injustice. Without proper mental health support, their potentials for contributing to national development remains limited. We must invest in trauma counseling communities, healing programs, and support networks that help survivors of human rights violations regain their confidence, dignity, and sense of belonging. A healed survivor is stronger and a more active citizen who can fully engage in building a future. Distinguished guests, fellows, and everybody in this room today, if we are to march in solidarity for self-reliance and national development, we must also march for truth, justice, and commitment to ensure the never again mantra is achieved, allowing the injustice of the past to define our future. This means strengthening the rule of law and ensuring no leader of institutions is above accountability, enforcing legal policies reforms that protects human rights and prevent future abuses, honoring the memory of victims. And I think memorialization as well is a very key component of transitional justice, which as a country we should also look into. Justice is not a favor, it's a right, and a nation that denies justice to its people cannot truly claim to move forward. Today, we are not just marching for remembrance, we are marching with purpose, with vision, and with unwavering commitment to future where survivors are no longer left behind. Support them and walk along them in the journey towards self-reliance and national progress. Finally, let us build a nation where justice is served, where survivors thrive, and where promise of the never again is not just a word, but reality. Together, let us march forward in solidarity for justice, self-reliance, and for a stronger nation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Aissatou Jammeh. Justice is not a favor, it is a right. And as we move as a country, it is important that, like you said, the plight of the victims are considered at all times. Thank you very much, Aissatou. Our next panelist is Anna Njai. Like I said, she's a seasoned legal expert with over 16 years of experience in civil and commercial litigation, alternative dispute resolution, and women and child rights. She holds an LLB, BA in banking, economics, and law, and an LLM in employment law. Anna has significantly contributed to the Gambia's legal system, including serving as supporting counsel to the Commission of Inquiry into former President Yahya Jammeh's financial activities and helping develop the Judiciary Strategy Plan 2021-2025. As president of the Female Lawyers Association, the Gambia, FLAG, she has led initiatives to combat gender-based violence and improve access to justice, collaborating with international partners like the EU, UNICEF, and UNDP. Anna is also an educator and trainer focusing on labor law and women's rights, and is now establishing her solo legal practice to continue her advocacy and consultancy work. Anna, you're welcome.
Good evening, everyone. I hope there is no Joben sleeping here at the moment. Okay. It's a great honor to stand here today, being a granddaughter of one of the founding fathers of the independence of the Gambia. So I'm really honored and proud that I stand here today to give my contribution. The topic I've been assigned to talk about is quite very broad, very important, but I will try to talk on key areas which I feel it's relevant for the team we have today in celebration of the 60th anniversary of our independence. We all know that over the recent years, we have witnessed notable reforms aimed at stimulating economic growth, strengthening governance, and expanding social services. Yet, we can all agree that we still have laws that are outdated, laws that are still under debate before Parliament, and partial implementation of some of our laws. So I would like to focus on three key areas which I think is relevant to help self-reliance and national development. First, constitutional reforms, strengthening the rule of law, and some sector-specific legal frameworks. Our Constitution is more than a legal document. As a nation, we have to understand that the Constitution is the embodiment of our nation's highest values and aspirations. In 2020, a new draft constitution was presented to the National Assembly. However, it did not garner support. And last year in 2024, a constitutional bill was introduced to replace the 1997 Constitution. We could all agree that these are all efforts of reflecting our commitment to update governance, anti-corruption measures, and decentralization. So what have we seen as we try to renew our Constitution? We have, as a country, laid promising foundation for a more inclusive Constitution that reinforces checks and balances, protects fundamental human rights, and devolves power to local councils. We have renewed our offer to enshrine clear public financial management provisions that will ensure accountability at every level of government. As we all know, we have the Office of the Ombudsman, but it is critical for Gambia as a country to have in its constitution an anti-corruption commission provision to also deal with issues of corruption and be free from political interference. Protection of human rights has always been in our constitution, but we could see in the draft constitutions, both in the 2020 and the 2024, that both drafts aim to strengthen property rights, freedom of speech, and women's rights as a cornerstone of a stable, equitable society. As we revive constitutional reforms, we must ensure that these protections are robust, particularly for rural communities, vulnerable to land grabbing and resource mismanagement. So it is therefore important for us to really have a constitution as a Gambia. It's the basic, it's the mother of all laws. All what we are doing today will not hold water if the constitution is not there for the people. And this is a constitution that should reflect the will of the people. So I think as for Gambia to strengthen self-reliance and national development, we should all ensure that it is first embedded in the constitution. Then we can look into laws that will support the constitution. Strengthening the rule of law. I think somebody mentioned rule of law, it's a broad concept, but in simple terms, it means everybody must follow the law and everybody must abide, from the president to the youngest gentleman on the street. We must follow the law, because if we don't follow the law, or if we don't implement and enforce the law, all what we are doing will not come to us we intended. So how do we manage to get this done? There are some key institutions in the Gambia that we really need to empower. We have the judiciary. I will commend the government for Gambianizing the judiciary of the Gambia. We have more judges. We now have the modernization of the judicial system, but there's a lot that needs to be done. And I think it is high time that the judiciary is not treated as an arm of government, but it's treated as an arm of government and not a ministerial institution. And its budget should be really decided by the National Assembly directly. Secondly, as mentioned by my sister there, Aisha, the TRLC recommendations. I think the recommendations from the TRLC basically address all the issues that we need in institutional reforms. And like she said, it is not just to be mentioned. We have to have laws that will ensure that, the recommendations come to pass. The police and the law enforcement agencies, these are critical institutions in the Gambia. You cannot talk about self-reliance and development when your security is at stake. We have currently the Police Act, which is under review. The Criminal Code is under review. But is it important that these legislations are passed and the police are given more investigative powers to prosecute economic crimes like land fraud and illegal fishing? We all know about the problems that we face in land in the Gambia. I think Mr. Mort Seka did mention about the national policy that is being developed for the national land policy. And I hope that this policy will take into consideration some of the issues that we have when it comes to land. Another key area, which is very passionate to my heart, it's legal aid. As we all know, I could say almost 90% of Gambians cannot afford legal services. Fine, I'm a lawyer, but I do give free legal aid because I'm the president of the Female Lawyers Association. And our association is there to promote the rights of women and children in the Gambia by providing free legal services. But if you want to develop as a nation, Gambians must have access to justice. And if you cannot access the justice because of limited resources, then I don't think we could develop as a nation when we're talking about self-reliance. We have the National Legal Aid Agency. I'm glad the chairperson is here sitting today, but I believe this is an agency that the government should really fund to support giving services to Gambians. They do provide service when it comes to the criminal justice system, but Gambians, the average Gambian who has a simple civil matter and cannot afford a lawyer, may go to the justice system without getting a solution that they desired. So it's really something that I would call on the government of the Gambia to look into the National Legal Aid Agency and also ensure that we have more mobile courts in underdeserved regions. It is sad to say that we have only 2 courts in the regions, and imagine a woman coming all the way from another region just to go to another court in another region to get access to justice. I don't think that's fair for a Gambia. So looking at some key areas, legal frameworks that I feel we also need to look at. I wouldn't say we haven't done. We have done a lot. When I go to conferences in other jurisdictions, I say Gambia, we're very good at making legislation, but sometimes our problem is the implementation and providing the funding to support those legislation. So I think it's important that some key areas that we need to look into if we want to have self-reliance and promote national development. We have the Gambian Investment and Export Promotion Agency, GIPA, and the Single Window Registry, which has basically streamlined businesses in the urban area. However, it's still a problem for someone in Kulora to register a business because we don't have a business registry in Kulora. We have everything is centered in the urban areas. I know the Minister of Justice is in the process of decentralization, but if we want to have self-reliance, I believe that all the regions in the Gambia, and every Gambia, should have similar services wherever you are. Land resources. My sister here mentioned about the issue of land. I was privileged to be part of a study in the preparation of a guide on women land rights in the Gambia. And talking to women farmers, you know, sometimes I even cry when they talk about their stories. They keep on saying we cannot be 70% of the farmers, and we cannot say we have a land. Anywhere you go to in the Gambia, they ask you, how can you help us to get our land? So I am privileged to be part of the committee that's looking into the national planning, national policy for, the national land policy. And I hope that the views that we are going to share in terms of women land rights in the Gambia will be taken into consideration by the government of the Gambia. We've mentioned about the TVET, and I think what we could do as a nation, we could revise the Education Act. We should legislate for business incentives to provide paid apprenticeship so that when these young Gambians, you know, go through the TVET system and they come out, they go into Gambian businesses and they are paid and trained so that they can have a source of living as well as trying to gain apprenticeship. So I think this is something that we should take into in terms of our education system to basically develop the skills of young Gambians. Not everyone can be a doctor, everyone can be a lawyer, but there are certain people that have skills that we need to support. And I think the only way we could, you know, push some of the private businesses is to put in laws that you have to take into consideration that every business should take this number of skilled, trained Gambians from this institution. That's the only way I think that, we could encourage businesses to. But what I think we could do as well is to ensure that every health center or every hospital has minimum standards or equipment that are needed right across all health centers and hospitals. We cannot say when we go to Bansang, we have a different standard than when we go to Banjul. The standard we have Banjul. I think this is something that we need to look into. The earlier speaker, Mr. Ja, mentioned about how do we make Gambia first. I think laws can be used for that. If there is a law that would state that any investor that comes into Gambia must employ or work with certain companies, then that will help Gambian companies to grow so that they can also learn skills. I know you have in the Labor Act that, the expatriate quota, but even with that, I think there's more that needs to be done. I think foreign businesses should be mandated to partner. If I'm not mistaken, I think in Dubai, if you want to open there as a foreign business, you have to, work with certain institutions or certain companies for you to flourish. So I think there's a way that government could use legislation to help self-reliance and national development. So we have very, very good policies that I believe that, could be transformed into law and help in self-reliance and national development. And one of them is the national energy policy. I know it's there, it's new, but I really urge the government to look into renewable energy and using local means of making renewable energy available to Gambians. I know I'm trying to just go through the brief points that I have. I wish I had more time to go into other areas. But what is important as a Gambia, we need to have the constitution. It's just like building a house and you don't have a foundation. Everything else will crumble. And I think we need to, as a Gambia, we need to have a constitution that works for Gambia. It's good to emulate other laws in other countries. Rwanda is an example. When they came from the genocide in 1994, they decided on what they feel Rwanda needs and not what the outside world thinks Rwanda needs. I think when we start thinking like that, we should be able to achieve what we want. So as a last call, like my dad always tells me, as Gambians, even if we have the best laws, even if we have the PhD presidents, the PhD judges, if our mindset doesn't change, nothing changes. So I ask for everyone to change their mindset. Thank you very much. And that was Ms. Njai sharing prospects on what legal framework can safeguard self-reliance in national development. Next on the panelist, we have Professor Jibril Fall, a renowned multidisciplinary business and development executive, co-founder of JK. He serves as a visiting professor at the London School of Economics, a council member of the Carnegie African Diaspora Program, and a lead consultant of the African Union Commission on Innovative Finance. Recognized with an OBE in 2014 and an audience with Pope Francis in 2020. He has held leadership roles such as Vice Chair of Bond UK, Chairman of Afford UK, and Founding Director of Africa Europe Diaspora Development Platform. With over 30 years of experience, he has advised the UN, World Bank, and EU, and addressed the UN General Assembly. Professor contributed to global migration and development policies, including founding Remit Aid, a remittance matching funding mechanism. Professor, welcome to the podium.
Assalamu alaikum. Honorable ministers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm asked to speak about how can the diaspora contribute to self-reliance and national development? So I immediately propose a minor edit to say, how can the diaspora expand and enhance their contribution? Because they already do. So it's about expanding and enhancing. I'm going to make 3 broad recommendations. And I would put it in the context, of course, for which we are here. That is the 60th independence celebrations. On that momentous day, 1965, school children had trained for several days to sing the songs of independence. And some of the songs, the anthems, was not just the new national anthem, but anthems in local languages and songs in local languages. One young Gambian who was an instructor for the blind was a bit concerned about the wall of music that was played. He thought it lacked substance and the sense of the new nationhood. And he went to work and he consulted education officials and he gave us the wall of anthem known as Ligay Jotna, Gambia Amna Bopam. The time for work is now. Gambia is independent. For the WADA, that's the name, then added a line, Une am sabopa, gadu sabopa koken. Indeed independence, but self-reliance is better. So from day one, self-reliance have been an issue. Today, we've heard the panel in the morning that gave evidence that there is no doubt that today Gambia is more self-reliant than it was 60 years ago. No doubt about that. But we are here to discuss self-reliance because the level of self-reliance that we want, we don't have it. That's why we're discussing it. But the easiest way to look at this is through money. It helps bring it home. If you are running your home, you give out subsistence money, depas or fish money every day. If you're not self-reliant, you will struggle on that, isn't it? Gambia, as we are today, in the year of our Lord 2025, among the past Mankena. According to the budget, for the past several years, about 35 to sometimes 40% of the money that we need every year comes through grants. That is the fact. So that's the self-reliance we need to correct. It's still a big job. The role of the diaspora is important because those grants and those support comes from people who are not Gambians. Over the years, we see them tell us what we should use the money for. We see them reduce the money. Sometimes they promise us and they don't. Of course, it's a gift. We cannot do much. But you have a growth significantly since the end of dictatorship in this country. But it is now hitting the height of about 100 million, 350 million. Whereas consistently, the Gambian diaspora sent to this country over $500 million. We had in January this year when we had the 8th Stake in the Nation Forum, Central Bank of the Gambia told us it was $775.6 million. That's the one that's counted. No question asked. That one, we counted it, every dollar. The ones that are not counted, by the time you finish, is maybe $1.25 billion. Every year it's coming. So even if people for whatever reason, do not like the diaspora because they are too loud, they are too cocky, still they are significant in maintaining every household in this country. Let's come back to those depas. Abla depas woman can. Why linjo hesi bopam? See opposite diaspora belejoge. Yeah? So it is a significant group, so that everything must be done to enhance and expand that inflow. So my recommendations goes along those lines. The first one is this: do not hinder, alienate, or otherwise discriminate against the diaspora. Don't do tell them, stop yourself. They are your people. Do not hinder them in any way whatsoever. So that's the omission. We had the Chief Justice tell us in his lecture today, he introduced the concept of negligence and what it means in law. One of the concepts in law is to stop something, it's not only omissions but commissions. It's only not what you do, but what you stop doing. So for anybody, government, civil society, everybody else, if you're thinking of hindering a member of the diaspora in what they do, or alienate them, or discriminate against them, stop it. Omit that. Yeah, that's the omission. For today, and in the context of the national dialogue, the biggest thing that must be omitted is the diaspora not having their vote. That omission, that denial of access to right should end. What they do with their right, whether they vote for this political party or this political party, should be nobody's business. It is their right. Whether they choose to go stay at home and not vote, it's also their right. So that is perhaps currently the biggest demonstration of the discrimination that needs to end. But why is that relevant to self-reliance? They will continue to support, but if they feel alienated, some of the things they would otherwise have done, they wouldn't do because there is no motivation. So some of the savings they are holding abroad, they're sending the remittances, but the savings they are holding, they're not important, that is. We had 22 years of dictatorship. The diaspora kept a big chunk of your money at home. Now, as part of the democratic dividend, they are bringing huge sums. Data from Ministry of Finance tell us, if you can put them together, it's the same line. It is the diaspora who are contributing to those buildings. So, and that's happening through what? The democratic dividend. But there's peace, there's harmony. So imagine then, if you then give them all of these other things, their rights and all that, you would see another dividend in the development sector. So the omission is stop the discrimination. Second is create the structures to allow for actual, virtual, and circular return. Not most of the diaspora don't want to return, and perhaps they shouldn't even return. They might be more useful to us being out there. But if there's need for something, say if you need a cardiologist at the hospital, and there is no cardiologist here, you can, some members of the diaspora can contribute significantly while staying at home. We had a beautiful and very good presentation earlier this morning from the young lady, Farmer Job, about tech, talking about telemedicine. You can have Gambian doctors doing operations while sitting there. That's virtual. And then you have circular return, where they come for a short time to do a piece of work and go back. And as we've heard from the presentation, and Ajay mentioned about implementation being an issue, all of this can be done today without any change of policy. The policies exist. The policies are in place. The strategies are beautiful. So it's just about getting it done. And the last recommendation is, beyond stopping the discrimination, beyond creating the structures for return, actual, virtual, and circular, is to be proactive. I can name some countries that are proactive in engaging their diaspora. Sometimes they may even steal other people's diaspora. They literally do it by giving them papers and citizenship so that they can make them work for them. I was going to say, I won't say it, but I'll say Senegal is an example. And it's not today, you know. They've been doing it a long time. There was a famous incident where there was a Senegalese guy who once served as Minister of Finance. Previously in his work, he was permanent representative of the Republic of Mauritania to the United Nations, but qualified for dual citizenship. Rwanda does it. They had a minister for infrastructure. He was head of the technical university. And when they wanted to make him minister, he's not Rwandese. And what did they say? Well, that's not a big deal. Make him Rwandese. They gave him a passport. He became minister. There's no big deal about it. It's the work that matters. The Rwanda Social Security Board, Social Security, every country in the world are sitting on a lot of money, isn't it? Their job is the nicest job around. You sit every month and you collect money. That's your job. Yeah? They have a lot of money. They wanted to build a new city. Big number, thousands of houses. The person they thought was the best person is Gambian diaspora. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, be careful. If we are not, just to illustrate the point that this is the last recommendation, we must be proactive and go out and find the Gambians. If you have a delegation going to discuss climate change, you are short on experts. You go sit with other countries developed. Believe me, the team they would bring, the team alone would scare the hell out of you guys. They have everybody. You don't have it. So it's an unfair fight. Well, find your expert. And just for that mission, accredit them to join your team. And I tell you, Gambian policy now allows that to happen. In fact, we piloted that in 2018. UN negotiation for the Global Compact on Migration. And the two people was the Deputy Permanent Representative of the Gambia to the United Nations in New York, Mr. Fati, and the expert representing Gambia was a young lady called Dr. Saida Butal, accredited by MUFA. She went and she did the negotiation. In and out. Gambia benefited, no big deal. In that case, and this can be done time again. Guess what? She did not want the job of the MUFA people. So nobody needs to be scared. Right. Finally, right. Whenever we're in doubt, subtraction. Avoid what? Division. Avoid subtraction. Don't discriminate people. It's bad. Avoid division. Don't divide them, race, tribe. Bad. Focus on what? Addition and multiplication. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prof. Jibril Fall. Quite insightful statement there. I mean, we cannot underestimate the role of the diaspora in the development of this country, having over 200,000 Gambians living outside of this country. And you know, many times when you talk about diaspora, people think it's only about people living in Europe and America. Even those in Senegal and even before, they are part of the diaspora. And I think it is important that their contribution is recognized and laws are amended to cater for them, even to have the diaspora represented in National Assembly. I know it's a long process because, I mean, our laws, I mean, give them as Gambians to vote, but I mean, you can only vote in a constituency. Nobody is allowed to vote and equally represented in the National Assembly. Up next, we have Mrs. Sundai from the back home. She's a civil environmental management and sustainable development expert with over 28 years of experience. She is the executive director of Tango and former executive director of the National Environment Agency. With an MSc and BSc in environmental studies, he specializes in environmental policy and technical committee on land environment and natural resources, and also focuses on impact assessment, stakeholder engagement, and capacity building, making her a key figure in the Gambia's environmental sector. Madam Bakun, what do you think?
understanding of existing protocols, the right things to everybody. When I meet us, I have to understand. Because if you notice, we went to school from Albion, Westcliff, and then Gambia High School. So it was very difficult. We knew when we were at school, we would just carry the Bible. So I knew we would become a pastor. It's a pleasure to be here, apart from being Gambian and how to contribute today. But I'm standing here as the Executive Director of the Association of Non-Governmental Organization, TANGO. I speak on behalf of that community today, not as an environmental specialist also, even though that's my passion, yes, but I'm a development worker. And when we talk about TANGO, TANGO is an umbrella organization, and we have members working in different areas. And my topic deals with the role of NGOs, but like Professor Fall mentioned, I expanded to CSOs, because when you talk about CSOs, you also focus on other non-profitable organizations, community-based, and we have been having a proliferation of civil society. We talk about NGOs, non-governmental organization, and community-based. Now the space is widening, different people are doing different things. And we are happy to be here because as Gambians and working in the area of non-profitable, non-state actors, we contribute also to development, sustainable development. And TANGO has been around since 1983. And before that, we have international organizations and also local organizations, NGOs, that have been functioning. And they decided that they have to come together because speaking with one voice is very important. It's not everybody who is a member of TANGO, but we represent the civil society, both members and non-members, because we are all operating in the same thing, and we are trying to see how we can all speak with one voice. Because this is important when we talk about self-reliance. It's very important, depending on which sector you are working. That is very important. And we promote this kind of thing within our own community. And civil society or NGOs, like I said, we've been here since the 60s. For example, Gambia Family Planning has been here since the 60s. They have Freedom from Hunger campaign. They are stationed in LRR. They've been around since the 60s. Then you have international NGOs that come in the 70s, like Action Aid International. These are all institutions that are here that are working to contribute towards self-reliance and also contribute to sustainable development. I don't talk only about development. We want to have sustainable development because we do think about the economy, the social, and the environmental component. Even though they might not be on the same level, before people used to just talk about socio-economic, but we live in the environment. We have to consider those things, and that's why the SDGs, that is Sustainable Development Goals, are important. At TANGO, our strategic plan is aligned to the National Development Plan and also the SDGs, just showing that we complement government effort, the civil society, NGOs, because government must provide the enabling environment for us to operate. We are partners in development. That's what is important. Because wherever you are standing, it's important you do your best. We've been hearing people talking about we need skills, we need this, we need that. All of us are coming from different sectors. But all of us have one thing in common, Gambia first. That's very important for all of us. But as civil society, as NGOs, which areas do we work in? We contribute towards national development. You talk about service delivery. If you go to hard to reach or underrepresented areas, let's say go to Woolly, you'll find NGOs there and on a community base. Even couples, they are civil society. They work with NGOs. So we've been around even before independence, and we will be around even after other things happen. So therefore, we are all partners in development. What is important, like they say in Wolof, busi nango nyao dang say affect. Nga tahaw bem jeka, and you do it well. And that's what we are doing. Also, as civil society, we advocate and policy influence. We've had people talking about some laws. Anna is a member of Tango, representing FLAG at our board, and they advocate a lot on women empowerment. And different organizations here between the civil society and NGOs, they advocate ensuring that people that are not well represented, the voice of the voiceless, they are heard in national policy discussions. I think this is very important. And we talk about gender platform, for example. And when it comes to service delivery, like I said, we have been doing that for a long time in the area of health issues. We also agricultural support. We do all those things because these are very important things. I mentioned actually peace building. One of our organizations, for example, WANEP, they work with the interior security to make sure we contribute a lot in that area. You have YMCA, they've been since here in the 70s. They work with youth. Then we have children or child's right organization like CPA. And you have Child Fund. Before it was called the Christian Children Funds. They've been long and they've done a lot. For example, in West Coast, in the Fonies, they provide resources to kids, pay school fees. You have many people, even who are in the civil service or other places, who has been sponsored by, let's say, Child Fund. And they are making a difference. We also, area of capacity building. We do a lot of capacity building, empowering communities, women, children. And also, we provide training and resources to our own partner. Empowering is very important when you talk about self-reliance in development. And I always use the word sustainable development. When it comes to issues like transitional justice, I should just talk about those things. We advocate human rights. Social justice is very important. And these are areas we work on. Community mobilization are very important. And empowerment, I keep using this word because we do it at different levels. And as NGO civil society, we also react to issues like disaster response. We know some of these are man-made, but we have to help people. Because during the rainy season, sometimes we go and live in places where we shouldn't live. We don't take care of the environment. And we have man-made disasters. Others are not, of course, taking into consideration issues of climate change. We work in the area of climate action. And also we talked about accountability, monitoring. Partnership and collaboration, I think that is very important. Like I mentioned earlier on, we as NGOs, civil society, we are here to complement government effort, and government must help us and work with us to provide the enabling environment. The laws are very important. Anna spoke about laws, but one important law which is not still in place is the NGO law. It's still a bill. We've been following up on that one. And we must have the right law, the law that helps us to carry out our work to contribute towards self-reliance and sustainable development. And as civil society, we believe in innovation and piloting projects at the community level. We do all these things because it's important, because to address some of the sustainable development challenges. And if it's successful, it can be scaled up by government, because government have the capacity to do those things, working with us. And of course, we advocate a lot, like I mentioned, for the Sustainable Development Goal. I think this is very important. And as civil society NGOs, most of us, we know we get sponsors from outside, and the world is changing. We have to be more innovative now. Self-reliance, we have to look inwardly and see how we work better as partners in development. Government get a lot of projects. Somebody mentioned about grants. But how much of that grant is given or work with NGOs, as we contribute a lot to this kind of things. So funding is a challenge, because if you rely on somebody else, he will tell you, if you are using somebody's eye, they will tell you, look here, that's where you might want to look, even if you want to resist. So we need to work on that area. And one thing is important, coordinating